Welcome, everybody, to your favorite day of the week. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine. I think I'm going to release this Thursday night. We're recording Thursday morning. You'll be listening to this if you listen to it in podcast form on Friday morning. That's why I said it's your favorite day of the week. It's also, this is crazy, Adam. I did Locked On Lakers earlier this week, and then now I'm recording with you on a Thursday, the way that we used to for our old Locked On NBA show.
Yeah.
This is crazy how things just work out. How you doing, bud?
Good. And I like that you did the intro from our old show. So that you know, it feels like old times, even though it is a Thursday and not a Friday.
I did wake up today. I was like, holy crap, how is it already Thursday? Like Avery started kindergarten yesterday. And I feel like now that the days are just going to just fly by between now and the start of the regular season. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about a few things. I noticed and found it interesting that Nuggets fans in particular were rooting for Serbia and not for the US. When I pointed that out, I also then got a bunch of fans of other international players who were like, yeah, I rock with Slovenia over US. And I'm like,
that's
I just found it really interesting. And I find this entire thing really like Bucks fans jumped in and were like happy to admit that they were rooting for Greece over everybody else. And I think that the entire ordeal was super interesting. This is the exact kind of conversation that Adam, you and I would have at least off camera. I don't know how it'll go on camera. Back when we're
about to find out.
You obviously cover the Nuggets and are in my opinion, the Nuggets guy. So I wanted to talk to you about the Nuggets specific fandom. And then I think this touches on some like aspects of the way that we cover the NBA in particular, or superstars in the NBA, or the way that fans root for guys. I've experienced something kind of interesting in that realm with LeBron, where you have a whole bunch of LeBron fans who are constantly fighting with Lakers fans. And I think it's this kind of, a continuation of the evolution of fandom. And then finally, at the end of it, we'll talk about the Nuggets if we have a little bit of time, because they have had an interesting off season. So let's start. I'm just going to get out of the way. I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'm going to give you my show.
Thanks, man.
I'm just going to go grab some coffee. And when I come back, hopefully you'll have this all fully explained for me. But Adam, like I don't even want to like make it so simple as like, where is it coming from? But like, would you have ever, I want to go back to like before Jokic was like ever played for the Denver Nuggets. Could you have ever envisioned yourself rooting against the US in an Olympic or international setting?
Could I
like a basketball setting?
Yeah. Could I have envisioned it? So I probably could have, and I'll explain the reason why. But before I say that, you know, the Redeem team is really the first. Like, I remember getting up to watch the 2004 team at the Olympics because I was so hyped for it, really into Team USA. And I actually did not catch the Greece game that they lost that year, but I remember waking up for work that morning because I was like, I'm going to get up for the other ones because this one is a gimme. And then after that, it's going to get interesting. And they lost that one. I remember waking up and being absolutely crushed, just like, this sucks. The Redeem team, they played the FIBA Americas in 2007 to qualify for the Olympics in 2008. People, I think, forget kind of this history of it. It had started because in 2006, they had a disappointment as well. So it was like, all right, 2007 is the first time of the group coming together. And believe it or not, and everybody knows, I've been on your show a handful of times, there's no team on earth I hate more than the Lakers. Absolutely hate them. That's why your audience always loves when I come on. And yet, Kobe Bryant was my favorite player of that time at that time. Mm-hmm. So I actually bought, and it was like the nicest thing ever. It was like, I finally get to buy a Kobe jersey. Like I can't do the Lakers thing. I like this guy, but I can't do it. So I got a Kobe Team USA jersey, and I actually flew. This is before I was in media. I flew to Vegas to watch them play one of their games. And so I was all in on the Redeem team. It was incredible. Like I was way into it. But when you ask, could you envision it? The answer is yes, because there are teams and players that I just don't like. And there are like versions of basketball like, I really love the game of basketball. And when I feel like it is being, it's not being cultivated properly by a player or a team or an entity or whatever, like, I just tend to be against that. Like, I don't want that to succeed. So there have been like iterations of the team where I'm like, not my favorite group, not my favorite group, not my favorite style or what have you. I don't think I'd ever rooted against them. It really was the Jokic piece of this, and we'll talk about a lot of that, but the Jokic piece of this and my connection to Serbia that, is much more layered than just like, I like my guy, so I like his team.
Yeah. I that's the part of it with specifically the DNVR guys. Like Harrison pushed back against it a little bit. Harrison Wind, not Fagan. He didn't care. But like, he mentioned the trip that you guys took to Serbia as a group and how they welcomed you with that stuff. And that's certainly a factor. By the way, like a lot of people took me pointing that out to be like, this is wrong. And I never at any point said it was wrong. I said it was fascinating because I do find
questions.
I was just asking questions. I do find it really interesting. I find this subject really interesting because
interesting. It's just interesting is the funniest word because it's always the like shield of the real time. Fascinating, it's the same thing. That's always the shield for like, I'm not saying anything. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's find it intriguing.
Yeah.
So I think, Adam, one of the reasons that you're in my content, or why you and I always kind of like, always wanted to work together as often as we could, and why our content worked is because I think we both have a very kind of like ideological view of basketball. Like you just said it, like there's a certain way that you want the sport cultivated. There's a certain way that like you want guys to go about this thing. Or people to go about this thing. And like, I'm going to be honest, if like, I would have a really hard time rooting for Joel Embiid if he was a Laker. Like,
let me make this easier for you. And first of all, I think we get along because neither of us take ourselves too seriously. Like we take ourselves very seriously, but we're able to laugh at each other and laugh at ourselves. So I think that's a large part of it. And this is like, can become a heavy topic. There's aspects of this could be heavy. And a lot of people are incapable of that, right? They're this only heavy and like this means something and we have to get to the bottom of it. I think we both like to enjoy exploring our own like feelings and thoughts. And then like in the moments where we're like, maybe I was off on this. It's not heavy. It's not weighty or like, oh my God, how could I have been so wrong in my perspective? It's like, oh, that was interesting. So this is it. But let me paint a picture for you better about the Jokic experience because the Lakers and Nuggets have been around for a long time. The Lakers a little bit longer, but in Los Angeles, not necessarily, but another way we grandfather that in, I know. But the Lakers and Nuggets been around for a long time. The Nuggets have had some great players in their history, but they've only had one Jokic. David Thompson has been around. Carmelo Anthony's been around. Dikembe Mutombo's been around. Alex English. These are really great players, Hall of Fame players. But none of them are Jokic, the best player in the NBA, and like one of the best, if not the best player of a generation. The Lakers don't have this, and I don't think Lakers fans ever understand the Nuggets experience. And it's like one of those funny things where it's whenever we have these types of conversations, this is why Harrison's favorite line is they just don't get it. And this is what it would be like. Kobe Bryant to this generation is, maybe the generation's kind of grown up and the younger generation doesn't have that same connection. It is an interesting thing I observe of Laker fans. But for most Lakers fans over the age of 30.
Interesting. Funny word there.
Very interesting. Kobe Bryant is the legend. But before him or alongside him, there was also Shaquille O'Neal. There's now LeBron James, Anthony Davis. And before that, there was Magic Johnson and Kareem. And before that, Elgin Baylor and Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain. There's no shortage of players that you could point to. Like if I said there's only one.
And
Kobe,
also importantly, like after LeBron, there's the sense that the next great is definitely coming.
100%. There'll be another era and that's part of what defines the Lakers. That there is this, every single generation kind of has a guy that is almost equal, if not, you get to pick your favorite because they're all the greatest player of their generation. So you get to pick which one of your eras you like the most. Denver does not have that luxury. They have one championship. It was brought by Nikola Jokic. I liken it to this. Imagine if you had Kobe, but you never had anything else. That was the only one you had. You have, like I said, our histories are equal length. The Nuggets go back to the 60s. So imagine you have that. And imagine he chose instead to play for Team Italy because he grew up in Italy and he identifies with Italy and he plays there. How many Lakers fans do you think would have taken a liking to Italy in some capacity and just been like, you know what? I'm rooting for Team Italy here because Kobe's my favorite player of all time. He's the only guy in my team's history that's ever delivered anything for us. I'm on Team Italy. I think a lot. But let's go one step further. Let's imagine that he's playing against Team USA, and Team USA is Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and Rajon Rondo. And like, that's the Team USA. You'd be like, okay, now for sure. It's not that I don't love America, but my favorite guy is playing on that team. And all of my least favorite guys are playing on that other team. And so, of course, like, it's hard for me to pretend that I'm going to go against the players that I don't like. So some players on Team USA I obviously love, but there are a handful of very meaningful ones that are like, yeah, man, what are we doing here?
I'm realizing I screwed up the video aspect of this because I'm wearing orange. I should have worn like straight up red, white, and blue. So it really leaned into a bit.
Well, guess what color Serbia is? red, white, and blue. So maybe.
I guess that's true. Well, I guess stars and stripes and all of that good stuff. But so I thought about that as part of this because I was something that like people in my mentions were like asking of me to think about. And I think it's impossible because you're asking people to completely detach themselves from the Lakers experience. So I thought about it more from the standpoint of like baseball or football. You know, my rooting interests haven't been as productive championship wise or greatness wise for me. Right. So like had Kershaw been from a different country, would I have rooted for America against Kershaw or something like that?
Well, we see this in soccer all the time, right? Like Messi is so popular that there's a lot of Argentinian fans at the World Cup. Like, hey, no, that's my team. Yeah. And it's a little different because the U.S. is never competitive on the level, you know, like that. But it is still analogous. So I think sometimes people are just like, well, the U.S. isn't going to win this thing, so I might as well go for Argentina or Brazil or whatever.
Yeah,
it's different in a little bit because Team USA is obviously competitive with Serbia and better than Serbia. So there is that rivalry. But people in the World Cup all go for, oh, no, I'm Germany. Every year the World Cup comes around, I love Germany. That's my team and whatever.
Yeah.
Very common.
Well, I'm Mexican and we suck at soccer. So like, I don't like, I'm probably, like, we were worried about you getting canceled. I'm probably in trouble for saying that. But like Mexico just has never really mattered in my lifetime in the World Cup setting. But like, so I thought about it from that standpoint, and the thing that I kind of where I landed on, and again, it's impossible for me to actually extricate myself from my own fandoms and fully put myself into this hypothetical. But I found it really interesting to root for Curry this year. Like I found like my own experience, I found fascinating in that like Curry makes that shot against the Lakers all the time, against anybody else all the time.
This was me with Kobe. I mean, you have to remember 2007, 2008, Kobe, like Nuggets are good. Lakers are good. Lakers had beat the Nuggets in the playoffs already. It was a very similar experience.
And I actually really enjoyed rooting for Steph. I really enjoyed rooting for like my current guy or Lakers current guy's peer, right? Yeah. Lakers fans root for LeBron. You would think that like Lakers fans couldn't get themselves to root for Curry, but I saw all kinds of people going nuts over Curry. I think the one step that takes it too far for Nuggets fans in particular is Embiid, because
totally
that's the guy that like Jokic is, you know, he's the guy that we're trying to make Jokic's peer. I don't think Embiid is his peer. And like, you know, that's the positional rivalry. That's the guy who just won MVP in the year that Nuggets fans think that Jokic should have won MVP. And like, I think that's where I could kind of understand where Nuggets fans are coming from, where like, I can't get myself to root for that guy in particular. It would have been kind of difficult to root for Paul Pierce, but like, at the time I didn't hate Paul Pierce. Maybe if it was after 2008 when Paul Pierce, you know, and the Celtics beat the Lakers in a championship, had Kobe played for Italy and I was being asked or being told to root for Paul Pierce on Team USA, that would have been kind of tough. You know, he wasn't on that team.
I can tell you what you would have felt. I promise you, I know exactly how that would have gone. Yeah. There's no like, well, you know what? I'm going to root for Paul Pierce for the troops. Like, these things are divorced in your head. It's like when you see Paul Pierce and you see Kobe Bryant, you're like, I know where my allegiance is.
Well, like, this is where it's kind of weird because like and not to get like politically here or whatever, but like if I say it's really hard for me to root against America, that's seen as like this, like, hard right, far right take, that like is linked to conservative values. And I don't I don't share conservative values, but I do truly, like, I am truly proud to be American. And
but does it manifest itself in basketball? Is that how it manifests itself to you?
I think it does, because like that's the only time in sports where we get to wrap ourselves in the flag, like that's look, there are very few things that I hate more in sports than Team USA soccer, especially guys soccer, right? Because to me, it's everything that's wrong with youth sports. It's pay to play. It's, they keep every kind of minority out of the club system as much as they possibly can. And yet every year I like talk myself into the chances that, like, okay, maybe this is the year that Pulisic is finally going to do it. That the Team USA finally has a chance in the world setting, because I just can't get myself to not root for America. And that's why I found this really, again, we're going to keep using the word interesting, because like, I don't think, even if it was Kobe, and given how much Kobe means to the Lakers fan base, I'm not saying nobody would have rooted for Kobe, but I don't think I would have gotten to the point where I would have rooted for Kobe in Italy, a country that I have no other link to than this good player. I think that would have been difficult for me. But I do think, though, that like you're right, and it's fair to point out that any other fan base, because we're seeing it with other fan bases, would have rooted for their favorite player in the country that they were playing for.
Well, the other aspect of this, so there's a couple more layers. So we'll go to the next layer here, which is, as you know, but I'm not sure your audience knows, I made what is probably, actually, I will say certainly, the most detailed, a documentary that gives the most detailed history of basketball in Serbia. And we did this. You mentioned that we went on the trip. We obviously
right over your left shoulder, for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Right over there, 100 invisible threads,
which is on YouTube, and it's free, and you can watch it. It's a really fascinating history. It's a history I never heard of before. And this is part of what, so there's a layer to this of, one, we have a huge international following. One of the joys of following Jokic is that us at DNVR in particular have really been able to connect with Serbian culture, Serbian fans. And there's this whole history of basketball. It'd be like finding out some like hidden, sometimes this happens with like the ABA or something, where you're like, there's a history of the Spirits of St. Louis, and here's this history. And you're like, wow, I never even heard this story. And that now I have a deeper understanding of the ABA or what have you. That's how it was for me in the game of basketball, where I found out that basketball has been in Serbia for 100 years, now 102 years or 101 years. So it's been that there's this rich history, and it goes back, and that actually Serbia/Yugoslavia, the proto country made up of several of the republics in the Balkans, that they actually have a ton of gold medals in international competition, including an Olympic gold medal in the 1980 when the U.S. boycotted. They have a bunch of silver medals. In our head, I think we always learn of sports through the Soviet Union and the U.S. So if you were just to poll your audience and say, besides the United States, what country or proto country has the most medals, I think everybody would be like, oh, Soviet Union. They were the only other ones. Not true. Yugoslavia actually has a parallel history to the Soviet Union of also winning up all those medals, but that story was never told to me. So I have this like appreciation, and going there, not only did I learn about a history I didn't know, but it actually tied me to, oh my God, international competition is like the Super Bowl for basketball fans that are not from America, that these things are actually way more important than the NBA championships and all these other things. And there's a really interesting reason why. So there's a second layer to this, where I not only feel like I am the steward of a history of Yugoslavian basketball personally, but that also like there's a rich tapestry in there that is kind of fascinating. It's like, I know that story now, and I'm connected to it.
Do you think Nuggets fans would have gone about this the same way had Melo never demanded a trade and gone to New York?
Yeah, I mean, this is another piece of all of this, right? Is that when you said it was Joel Embiid, it's true that he's the number one guy. But there's another aspect of this, which is NBA players just seem to not like Denver, Colorado. And there's no complaints. This is not a thing of like, oh, people will say this about Utah. Their fans there can be really, really bad or something like that. It's not fun to be a fan there. No, there's not those complaints about Denver, Colorado. That's not a thing you hear from Melo. He didn't like it because it was too small. Like it was wanted to be a little in the spotlight a little bit more. So LeBron James, you'll probably remember this. Woj dropped a report in 2018, the summer of 2018, when LeBron was still unsigned. And it said something like Denver having Murray Jokic signed, locked up long-term. Denver now wants to make a pitch to LeBron James. And the whole world laughed. It was the funniest thing ever that the Denver Nuggets,
because it was a link between LeBron and Kroenke's like friendship, right?
Yeah, because they are friends. They have a friendship, and even that was enough to make it laughable. Like, why would he come here? Now let's think about this.
I'm laughing now.
You're laughing now, but let's think of this. LeBron James has gone to the Lakers and he got a championship in 2020, so you can't say it was a failure. But it certainly hasn't been what I think most people expected. You go to LA and you're going to be contending every year, and you're going to be right there. Denver, on the other hand, if you were able to retain Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and have a big three that featured LeBron James, I personally think that team is probably 3 or 4 championships deep. The Nuggets already have. You basically replace Aaron Gordon with LeBron James. At that time, you would have the same team, but it would be LeBron James instead of Aaron Gordon. That's a hell of a team. That's a really, really good team. And some of this was Denver was in 2018. That was like where they broke out. So, you would have to kind of be.
We didn't like Jokic wasn't Jokic yet.
But the idea remains of Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, all of these guys, like Denver always pursues these people. They never want to even take the call. And so there's this idea of, all right, there is also a layer of some of the guys here are just straight up, on rivalry teams, LeBron and Anthony Davis, the Lakers, Joel Embiid, a Jokic rivalry. But there's also a part of this of, these guys don't like Denver. They always, and we saw this with Kevin Durant immediately after winning the game, 3 a.m. is like, I'm just going to get online and try to talk shit to Nuggets fans and just go after them.
It was, I don't think he did that specifically because of like Denver. He was doing that because Nuggets fans were the loudest in their fandom for Serbia, for their favorite players' country. Right. And part of that is that like Dallas is, they would root for Slovenia, I guess, but Slovenia didn't make the tournament. And, Bucks fans would root for Greece, but Greece was never really a serious contender in this one. Canada is interesting. There were a few fan bases whose favorite player is on, or best player is on Canada. None of those players, though, have the link quite yet or have built up enough credit in the bank account for that fan base to root hard for Canada. I also just find Canada's team pretty unlikable. Like I just like
Dylan Brooks.
They seem a lot like that 04 team where like every year, like even this year, right? It was like, is Jamal going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he going to be on the team? Is he going to be like, is he going to participate? What is his role going to be? And that was like right up in the run up to the Olympics. We were still figuring that out. I remember. And like that, like the Canada team would be pretty difficult to root for. I think another important part in this is like, there is a sentiment that is anti NBA player right now.
Okay. This is good to get into.
The player empowerment era has led to, I think, a tension between fans and players, and I think
because there's have-nots of that, right? Because player empowerment really leads to team building via player, star empowerment, and team roster building between player, and of course that doesn't benefit a very large majority of the NBA. It benefits a very small minority of the NBA, and Denver's obviously on the outside, so there is a layer of that. But I think the more interesting layer to pull on, with regards to what you're saying, is this. The last piece that turned me off to Team USA, and I've always told you this, I wish Kobe was still around for a million reasons, but one of the reasons was I genuinely think he would have been the bridge between the influx in European talent in the NBA and American players, and would have been the guy that was like, guys, this isn't a battle. Like, this is not, we don't need to have these like tensions here, because Kobe had a deep appreciation for the European style of basketball. And Kobe had something that I think this generation of players, well, in particular, Kevin Durant, is missing. And that is this. Kevin Durant came into this tournament 2-3 months ago, did an interview, and he said, I think I want to win by 40 or 50 every game to show them that we are still supreme. The U.S. is still supreme. They're the best. By far, the United States has the most talent and produces the most talent. And even though they had, in every single game they played, 12 of the top 13 players, there was no team that had more than one player that was better than anybody on Team USA's roster. So they had 12 of the 13 in every game. And if you would have extended this to a 100-person roster, most games, the Team USA would have had like 97 of the top 100. That's how deep America is with talent. And there's great reason to be very proud of that. And I don't want people to think that I don't believe that. But here's the thing. Kobe, I think one of the things that made him so fascinating is when he saw somebody that did something different than him, rather than like be like, my way is better, he was like, huh, what could I learn from this? What could I take from that? And I think this is part of what the spirit of the Olympic Games is all about. I liken it to UFC, where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu might be the top way of, the most impactful way of fighting in MMA. But that doesn't mean that you don't learn boxing. You don't learn wrestling and grappling and Muay Thai and everything else. Those elements actually can all serve you, even if one has become supreme. Yeah. And to me, Kevin Durant represents this exceptionalism to a very specific and narrow style of basketball that, rather than look around and say, how can I become more like, how is basketball offer all these things and I want to take from him, more of a, yeah, I have our way and our way is just better and I don't need to learn anything from you. This Olympics proved that he was wrong, even though they won. Yeah. They eked out 2 wins, even though they were far more talent. So there is something to look around and say, huh, what is there? And by the way, Kevin Durant is especially averse to this lesson, as evidenced by his takeaway from going to the Warriors and saying, what I showed them was that all your fun ball movement was dumb. And like, I proved something wrong. That's not the lesson to take from that. So Kevin Durant clearly has a bone to pick with that aspect of basketball that I just find to be quite a turnoff. Basketball should be a uniting thing and an exploration thing. What is everybody does it a little different? What can I learn from everyone? And he seems to be the antithesis of that to me.
Do you think the if there were more Derek Whites on this American team, guys that you knew going in were role players, if there were more of those and fewer of like the Jason Tatums, who, like, Jason Tatum wins a gold medal in the same summer that he wins a championship, and has spent the entirety of the summer since whining about how disrespected he is. Makes it so easy for me to dislike the Celtics.
Again, you like, of course, this is the thing you keyed in on because it's the guy that you like the least on the team. I'm telling you, these biases, everyone's like, so interesting. I hate Tatum and I'm glad he didn't get to play. Like, we're doing the same thing.
No, here. You're
not hating on Team USA, but you are hating on one guy on Team USA.
Look, again, I cop to my biases all the time. And I love that he did get into the game and sucked. Like, it was the best. It was the best. It was like for all Lakers fans out there, and we have very little to root for right now. Our team literally cannot acquire an NBA player this summer. But like,
let's come back to Tatum here in a second, though, because I have a take for you. I want to get off.
Well, so like, at this point, though, I think, because you look at that, and I forget who tweeted it or whatever. But like, Nuggets fans were basically saying it took the Avengers to beat Jokic by however many points they actually.
How many points? It was 4.
It was close.
And this is, right? And by the way, accurate statement.
Well, but the
it wasn't just Jokic, though. It was Team Serbia.
Serbia had just won silver in an international play in FIBA last summer, without Jokic. And like, this is the part of it that, like, I again wish that, like, we had more role players on Team USA or the guys' team, in that, like, or more guys would be wired more like Devin Booker, who like just accepted his role and tried to thrive in his role. But like, if we got more of that, we would see, I think, the kind of thumpings that Kevin Durant is talking about. Because like, the problem that we keep on having is that, like, all of these guys are wired to play like NBA superstars, but you can only have one guy actually play that role on the court at any one time. Whereas like with all of these countries that overperform or outperform expectations, their NBA superstar gets to continue to play like NBA superstars, and everybody else there is understanding of and fully accepts their roles. So in a basketball sense, like, I do kind of think what makes this Team USA in this specific sense unlikable, and like, all of the conversation surrounding this tournament was just maddening to me. How much time we spent crying about Jason Tatum not playing and all that stuff. Like, that's the part of this that I think is where I would kind of grant why it would be easy for another fan base to just want to distance themselves from that. From that identity, because it was really annoying.
To me, it's Kevin Durant and Joel Embiid and maybe Jason Tatum, and those 3 guys. Anthony Edwards maybe has a little bit of this, and again, if Anthony Edwards was Kobe, I think he would have taken away different lessons from this than what it seems like he's going to take away. And this is part of my thing. But here's the thing. I found this Team USA to be extremely likable. And one of the things I say is, you know, like
when they were on the court.
And to be clear, I was rooting for Team USA at all the games outside of Serbia. Like the way this broke is kind of great for what I really value. And that is the US team, I think, probably can look around and have a new appreciation for international basketball. Because yes, this team was unbelievable with talent, but it's like, you know what? There are these other layers to basketball that other nations are really good at. And when you said if they would have brought in role players, I actually think one of the things I liked the most about this Team USA was star players became role players willingly. Anthony Davis did what he's best at. Like he kind of got out of the way offensively and dominated defensively. Devin Booker, same thing. A guy who's not even known as a defender played unbelievable defense and was out of the way on offense, knew exactly where he fit into this. Drew Holiday's more natural at doing this, but he, you know, obviously did that. And even LeBron James, as much as he took over this team and the personality, he took it over in the right way. Like LeBron could have tried to score more, try to do this, that. He kind of knew I need to organize everything and basically be Magic Johnson.
Point LeBron again.
Point LeBron, and I get to do that. And he did it perfectly. LeBron James was unbelievable in that entire run. So Team USA to me was actually very likable. But here's the thing. When you said that the U.S. would win if they just built this team different, I disagree. I disagree because this is the soul of basketball. That's why I say basketball is a spiritual game. There are three main equations that make up for a basketball team, a good basketball team. There is talent, the overall talent. That's individual talent and collective talent. And that's a huge part of it. Probably makes up 70% of a basketball team is the talent. And you're talking about Team USA. It does and will always have the most talent, at least for the foreseeable future. Number two is teamwork. And the teamwork aspect of this is not just the willingness, it's also the ability. And a lot of people that come from places like Serbia or Greece or Italy or a lot of these other, Lithuania, teamwork is the part of the game that is built into it from a very young age. This can't be replicated with a great summer and the right guys. It's a thing that is like, no, in their mind, basketball is not an individual sport. It is a team sport. And the idea of making it or talking about it individually doesn't make sense. And then the third part of this is competitive spirit. This the toughness and resiliency and how hard you play. And again, it's hard to replicate the passion of some of these places where they know it just means so much more. I mean, we saw the parade that the Serbians throw at the National Assembly building with 500,000 people showing out and lighting flares and everything. It's hard to replicate that passion anywhere. So I look at that and I go, I don't think the U.S. will catch up in teamwork. In part, there's reasons for this, that teamwork is so ingrained in some of these other nations. And I don't know that they're going to be able to replicate the passion and intensity. Like these guys would have died on the court yesterday or the other day if they could have, if it would have brought a medal. They literally would have sacrificed themselves. You can't sacrifice, in my opinion, match it some guys here or there, but I don't think it'll ever mean to American players what it means to some of these other guys, just knowing the cultural history and all these different things. So I look at that and I go, we discount these other things as if they don't matter, because they don't matter as much as talent, but they actually matter an enormous amount. And we even see teams in the NBA that sometimes you're like, they were more talented, but they didn't get it done. Why? That other team just played together better and was a lot meaner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem with like the analytics era, right? Is that like those intangibles are just that. You cannot actually put a value on them, and therefore it's easy to kind of ignore them. The one thing I will push back on, as far as like, will Team USA ever play as hard as these other countries? Being embarrassed is like, or not wanting to be embarrassed is a big factor there. Like had this group had like this was essentially like this era's Avengers gone out there and not won gold this year, they would have been it would have been a giant embarrassment, and frankly, like a red letter on the league.
I want to be clear. It's not that they didn't play hard. It's that what's chasing your soul. And like a perfect example of this, Anthony Edwards played incredibly hard. He's a competitive dude. He naturally plays at a competitive level because he's just a natural competitor. He was asked in the immediate aftermath if he's going to play in the World Cup, and he said, hell no. Like that just tells you the connection he has to this. This was an experience of this or that. To a lot of the international players, it's an automatic, of course. Like, that would be like asking LeBron, are you going to play for the Lakers this year? Well, of course I'm going to play for the Lakers. Like, why is that even a question? So just even using that as an example, it's like, we know that these international competitions are not a thing that you just sort of opt into and opt out of.
Well, Jokic literally opted out of the FIBA tournament.
And Serbia hates him for it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it is something,
and it's very rare. It's rare. Like Franz Wagner has not, Luka Doncic has not. Luka Doncic went straight from the NBA Finals to the qualifying tournament, like immediately after.
Remember. I mean, poor Dallas fans are probably scarred by this, but remember when Dirk was on that German team and they kept playing him like 38 of the 40 minutes, and it was just like Mark Cuban is sitting there literally like flop sweating on the sidelines, like, please, can we get this guy to? No,
the other thing about it, the other thing to think about is how many medals. Do you know how many total medals the U.S. won?
Like 120, like across the whole thing.
You don't know, but it's something like 140 or something, right? Like that's,
no, it's like 126. We won like 126, and we were like 30 ahead of China, who came in second. And then
Serbia had 5. Serbia had 5. Like a medal means a lot. So it's not one of these things where it's like, we had a 2026. Could you name what they were? We got a bunch here. We got a bunch there. Serbia's like, I know exactly what medals come every single year. They mean something. It's a smaller country, of course, but that's why. So again, there's just another layer to this. That's like, it's just different, man. It's different for some of these smaller countries. The point of the documentary circles around an international tournament that they were banned from for several years during the Dream Team and all that different stuff, and how that team was unbanned because of the Civil War. They were unbanned right in time for Eurobasket, where they came in as supreme underdogs and ended up winning. And it's like the thing when somebody comes to the country and wants to know about Serbia, they're like, well, we won the 1995 Eurobasket. It's like, you start there. So to try to say that, this is why I say, like, it's not that the Americans weren't playing hard, and it's not like it didn't mean something to them. But for a lot of these international players and teams, it means everything to them. It means literally everything. And if they had 6 championships, they would change them in for 1 gold.
Yeah. Again, I think we're arguing 2 separate points here, because it can mean, like, winning can mean a lot to those players or those countries and stuff like that. Whereas, like, losing can be one of the things that get associated with you if you are an American. Like that 04 team. Like I link it. I'm now, again, here's my own biases at play, but I link that to Duncan. That Duncan lost on that 04 team, and then Kobe came in and immediately won in 08.
That's a good way to flip that for you. I think that's good. I would play that if I were you.
But again, just think about all of the talent.
Was 2014 because they're
Iverson was. I didn't like Iverson as much then, because I thought he stole an MVP from Shaq. So that when Iverson lost and Duncan lost, and they lost the way that
was a
Pop
great
was coaching that team too. Like Pop was coaching that team too, and I'm Team Phil over Team Pop. So like, but like I think it, like, winning can mean everything, or any success can win anything, but any failure can also mean a ton to American superstars who, like, you had LeBron, you had Steph, you had KD, you had AD, and who like, Lakers fans are still trying to prove or say is like the best defensive center, all of these things. Like, that is one of the most talented collections, or that is the most, I think, in terms of guys still being in their primes and stuff like that, that is the most talented team I think ever assembled. And it's like at least top 3. And had they lost, that I think would have been a giant embarrassment to all of those players. Like, you even having to take over the heavy hitters, and you still lose to these giant underdogs. Like that South Sudan game in the run up to these Olympics was fascinating, because I just thought, like, I thought that, like, wow, are we actually going to learn one of the important lessons here? Like, are we going to keep playing Embiid? Are we going to
Germany game 2 though? This is my point. Between exhibitions and the elimination round, there were 4 close games this time around, and I agree with you. This is the best Team USA that I have seen. I mean, it's hard to compare, like, eras. Even 2008, it's hard to compare, but 1992, it's impossible. But of the teams I saw, I think this was the best one, the most talented one. And yet 4 games were close. This is part of my point. And some of this is artificially,
I think it's a lot of it is like this arrogance that, like, oh yeah, we'll keep starting Embiid and we'll keep on, because you knew that Embiid got like a starting promise, or you promised a certain role for not playing for France and stuff like that. So you had that going on.
People told me that this was not, people tell me that that I made this up, by the way, whenever I say it, even though it's reported. Joe Varden has a lot of reporting about all of these different things. People get mad when I point this out.
What, that people actually push back on that? Like that people thought that Embiid definitely deserved to start? No, AD was
no. They're pushing back on the idea that he was recruited to play for Team USA, which again, there is reporting on that he was recruited. This was like a
weird.
We want him. He was thinking about where to go, and then he decided here. People are like, no, he's been in America for 14 years. He always wanted to be here. I say, I don't.
Yeah.
And by the way, it was a very consequential addition. Like, I don't think Team USA wins without him on that team. And another reason I think that, like,
they don't beat Serbia without him.
And by the way, this is not just an American thing. I don't like this. I don't like the nationalized players. I just think it takes away a little bit of the spirit. In this one way, we all understand the stylistic differences of different types of playing in soccer. You really understand this. Like, some teams play fast, some teams play aggressive, some teams are conservative and play more defense than offense. Like, you get these almost cultural differences. The U.S. has always been weak at center. They've had Shaq, they've had Robinson, they've had Dwight Howard. In between there, they've had Kevin Love and Tyson Chandler and JaVale McGee and like guys.
Plumlee has played for Team
Mason
USA.
Plumlee. Like, they've had some guys that you're like, okay, that's the U.S.'s center, because, and that's a thing of every country kind of has more or less of different types of athletes. Some countries have lots of enormous people, like say Serbia, and that's their advantage. And typically this is part of what makes the Olympics fun, as you go, okay, what are all of some of the cultural and physical and everything else advantages of each country, and they come together and compete. And that's why I think this one, like, people kind of brush it aside. And again, it's fair. The U.S. isn't the only country nationalizing guys that help the team. Like, Lorenzo Brown is not from Spain, but he gets to be on their team and he's helped them win medals. Like, there's a lot of different players from around. But to me, I look at that and I go, yeah, but that also breaks a little bit of the spirit of like, okay, but where, you know, how did this go again? It's a little different from being the USA. It's a little different. I think it's all fair. Let me be clear about that. But it is one thing that I look at and I go, the U.S. just doesn't produce a lot of centers. Even if you look around the NBA, a lot of your centers are international. And there's a reason for that.
That was part of the math that I was doing when I was looking ahead to 28, because I genuinely think that Team USA is going to be in a little bit of trouble going into that tournament. AD is going to be 4 years older. I don't know if Embiid is going to play for Team USA again, and what he'll even look like in 4 years. He looked awful for the vast majority of this tournament. LeBron, I see some people saying like, well, LeBron could play again. He'll be 44 years old. And France is only going to get better. Serbia is going to continue to be great, because I think Jokic is going to keep being great. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I would. I think USA will be the favorites, but it won't be the overwhelming favorite that they have been in every other Olympic run up to that point.
Yeah.
I also like one more thing before we talk really quickly about the Nuggets and their offseason and the Lakers offseason. We're in an era, because of all of this player movement and star empowerment and all of that stuff, where more and more and more Gen Z is rooting for stars over teams. And I younger millennials are rooting for stars before teams. And I think that is a big factor here in, basketball fans, whether it's Jokic fans or Giannis fans or why am I blanking on his name for
Luka.
Dallas? Luka, thank you. Luka fans, like they're like, I asked Nuggets fans, what happens if Jokic leaves? Are you going to keep rooting for Serbia? And like, a lot of people were like, or if he leaves the Nuggets, would you root for whatever team Jokic goes to? And a not small number of people replied with, yeah, Nuggets haven't done shit for me before Jokic showed up. Jokic has been the full extent of my basketball fandom. Yeah, I'll go with Jokic. And I don't think that like there's a LeBron fan base. That's why there's actual tension in the.
We have Westbrook fan base has arrived in Denver. God. Yeah, are they fans of the Nuggets? Absolutely luck, not. But there are guys now.
Like I said, we're going to talk about the Nuggets offseason here in a bit, because I have some laughing to do. But this, I think we're really in this era, and I think the NBA is trying to kind of clamp it down a little bit, but with this new CBA, making it a little bit more difficult for players, stars especially, to jump teams. But I think that's a big factor here is that like we are arriving in an era of NBA specific fandom, because you don't see this in other sports where fans of stars, like these guys are their own economy now. The team matters a lot less than the player does. And I think, again, it's another aspect of all of this that I find fascinating. I cannot picture myself not being and completely associating with just being a Lakers fan. That is a part of my identity. I don't care who comes or goes. I would just be a Lakers fan. When Shaq left, I said, fuck the
It's easy. It's kind of easier though for you again, because like there's always somebody around the corner. Like even this LeBron thing, like LeBron, is this team going to win a title with LeBron? Maybe I don't know. You never know with the Lakers, but to me, it almost feels like this will just play out over the next couple seasons, like Kobe's last few seasons. And and then something will arrive, but there's still the and then, like you just kind of know. Whereas with Denver, if Jokic demanded a trade, I don't know if Denver would be good again for 20 years. Like, if we just look at history as like a thing, the Nuggets would probably, it wouldn't be like, well, we got some draft picks and we're going to rebuild. It'd probably be at least 10 years of nothing happening. And then if lightning happens to strike and you just get one of the, like Denver's never had the number one guy. They just have never had it. They've sometimes in their history had the number 3 or 4 or 5 guy. And like, those are our golden eras.
I think it depends. If Jokic forces his way, like demands a trade specifically to the Lakers, the lottery would like help the
but it'd be in a down year where you just, you get some guy that's actually, you get Anthony Bennett. You're like, all right, well, and the NBA is like, we helped you. You see, you're like, thanks, man, that we're saved.
But no, like, what do you think though? Like, if Jokic
I hate to say that I've thought. Yeah, I hate to say that I've thought about this, because you have to, I guess. Maybe I'm just a sadist. I don't know. I think it would depend on the circumstances, because to some degree, like I really like watching Jokic, and I think it would be hard to not like watching him, to enjoy it. But would I be rooting? Would I be pulling for it? Sometimes, I always say this, I sometimes don't know how I feel about something until I'm watching it. And I'm like, why am I rooting for, why am I rooting for the Bucks right now? Like, why am I pulling for whatever?
Man, dude, that is one of my favorite like things in sports. It's a Bucks Heat game, and I find myself rooting for like the Heat, and I have no idea why.
Yeah. Oh, like my wife will come in like, "Who do you care who wins this one?" I'm like, "No." And then halfway through the game, I'm like, "Come on, you got to be." You're like, "Wait a second. I guess I do care. Why do I care?" And you're trying to work it out. So I don't know, but what I would say is, I suspect that it would be the most painful sports breakup of my life if it were to happen, like easily. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Jokic owes Denver a certain amount. And he's kind of delivered on that, what he owes, right? He brought the championship. But Jokic came to Denver, and I honestly don't think there's another place he could have landed where it worked out like this. He landed in the perfect spot, and Denver Denver recognized something in him early. Not at the draft, but in year 2, it's like, all right, this is our guy, in a way that I just don't think would have happened in many places. Some of that is circumstantial. I mean, a lot of that is circumstantial, just got lucky. But I do think that there's a level of like, hey, they were with me when I wasn't ready. And like, so am I going to be with them when they're not ready, if there's a year or 2 there? And I say that because Carmelo Anthony, when he left, when he demanded a trade, right, the year after LeBron took his talents to South Beach, his claim was that Denver went into rebuilding mode, which is partially true, but it's certainly not totally true. That team was still good enough to compete. To the degree that Denver was probably good enough to compete last year, maybe a step below, but they were still capable of competing, and they were laying a foundation for a second era that immediately hit with them winning 57 games in 2013 with, the spare parts. So for me, I look at that and I say, I think that was a convenient excuse. Melo had a moment to be like, okay, no one's going to blame me now if I say I don't want to be part of a rebuild, even though it's not a rebuild. So I look at that and I say, it's circumstantial. I do think there is a world where Denver just does not do right by Jokic for long enough, where Jokic says, guys, I'm not going to waste my career any further. I got you a championship. I gave you 10 years or whatever it is, and leaves. And that would really hurt. And I don't know if I certainly wouldn't be a fan the way I am now, but I might not be as mad. But I don't think we're at that point. I don't think we're anywhere close. So if Jokic were to feel that way now or anything like that, I would say, yeah, that's a Melo situation.
So you think if Jokic forced his way, like if the little mural thing behind me here was Jokic in a Lakers uniform, like, pounding his chest.
Lakers, it's obvious. If it's Lakers, there's like no way.
So the city of Denver just cuts ties completely. That's it.
Well, I don't speak for the city of Denver. I mean, the city of Denver is 40% people from Los Angeles.
You have built a very successful thing that, like, cultivates Denver fandom. I think of people that I could possibly talk to or who could try to speak for Denver. I think you're one of the
so what you're saying is Nuggets fans, not the city of Denver. I'm just making a distinction here. The city of Denver really is an enormous percentage of it is people from California within the last 20 years. So they're so when you say the city of Denver,
they'd be like, would be happy.
No, they'd be like, he went in on my team? Hell yeah. That's the way the world works. And by the way, when you were talking about following players, I think a large part of it is this. Cities don't mean what they used to. And I honestly think that this is an important thing. Cities used to have much more of a connection to one another, and sports were a huge part of that. I always make this comment, and it's kind of corny, but if you go to Rome, the center of the city is the Colosseum. If you go to Chichen Itza, ancient ruins, the center of the city is their court. Like sports are at the center of cities for a reason, and they have been for thousands of years. And that's because it's the only place you get every type of person from a city cheering on the same thing. That's no longer true. And I actually think that you can look at the last 20 years of like the American cities and say, okay, it does feel a little more fractured in a lot of ways. And I think there's at least some parallel to that. But that trend of rooting for players, it's almost easier because if your team you don't own in your city and your team loses and gains guys, it's easier to just say, you know what, I just follow that guy wherever he goes, and I'm not actually part of the city. I'm just part of this player. He's my proxy.
Also, if you follow a player, you're guaranteed a better fan experience than if you just follow a team. Like if that player is great, if that player is great, and somebody like Jokic who brings with him a baseline that is significantly higher than that of the Denver Nuggets historically, it might just be a better experience to root for a player.
Think about this. Danilo Gallinari was the best player on the Nuggets for like 6 or 7 years. Imagine if that, and Danilo Gallinari is great. And by the way, great era. Like Nuggets fans look at that positively. But imagine if the Lakers had an era where Danilo Gallinari was the best player for a 6 year, half a decade. You'd be like, man, that would have been the worst, darkest era of Lakers history. For the Nuggets fans that look back and are like, man, I love the Ty Lawson, Danilo Gallinari, Kenneth Faried Nuggets. And you're like, what? Loved them? Well, that was like a top experience.
Yeah, I used to do a show here regularly with Aaron, who grew up a Warriors fan, and he listens to me talk about the Lakers the way that I talk about the Lakers, and I hold him to the standard that I hold the Lakers to a standard too. Yeah. And he's always like, "You're insane. Why are you demanding Rob Pelinka gets fired 2 years after they won a championship? Who else does that?" Wow. And it's like, it's just Lakers fans do. We just do. And I think the vast majority, that's why so many fan bases, part of why they hate the Lakers and the Lakers fan base so much is because of how obnoxious and entitled we sound when we say those kinds of things. But it's also been ingrained in us, and it's it's all these other things. But really quickly before we get you out of here, the Nuggets have an interesting offseason, I would say. They lose KCP. So in back-to-back years, they lose Bruce Brown and then they lose KCP. They're hoping that Christian Brown steps in.
I hate when people phrase it that way. Bruce Brown couldn't be resigned. There was nothing, like the rules made it so he couldn't. They didn't.
I know. I'm not saying I'm not blaming them for losing Bruce Brown. I do think that they deserve some blame in losing KCP. But like the Brown thing, but they still do not have those two talents on their roster anymore. That's all I'm saying there. They're hoping that Christian Brown steps in and is able to fill that KCP role. They bring in Russell Westbrook, which, historically to teams that are trying to win championships always turns out well. Yeah. Like what do you do? Like, what do you do with this Nuggets offseason? I saw on DNVR the other day, you guys were trying to pontificate on what the narrative about the Nuggets is going to be. What is your local narrative going to be? Like, how are you going into the season?
Well, it doesn't feel good, right? This is really the first offseason of the Jokic era that feels like the plan is not a great one. You know what I mean? Like every other year, the only other years you would say would be the Murray injury years, but those felt like, well, what's the point? These years are just kind of purgatory. But this is the first year where you look at it and go, yeah, this doesn't feel like the right direction. It feels a little bit like the wrong one. And I'll start with the KCP piece of this. This roster building is so hard because the Nuggets need KCP this year. They might not need him the year after that and the year after that, but you can't sign him to a 1-year deal. You got to commit to him long-term. And you got to do these different things. The Denver was in a tough spot, but in my opinion, you have to take the next step before the step after. So you have to, like, if you need him for this year, then just get him for this year and figure out next summer when it arrives and what you have to do. That second apron thing really did screw. There's a handful of teams, like Minnesota's one of them. Denver's another. Trying to think of some of the Golden State was one of them, where changing the CBA right after Denver committed to all these contracts is like, well, we wouldn't have committed to these literally 3 months ago if these were the rules. Like the rules literally changed from underneath the feet. And this is one of the big consequences of the offseason. That being said, I think they should have brought him back. The Russ one, here's what I'll say, because Russ can be a disaster. You know this. I mean, it could be an absolute disaster. When DeAndre Jordan was traded from the 76ers and came to the Nuggets, one of the best things for me, and this never got acknowledged, like this is a win that Nuggets fans got that nobody really knows about, but we get it. 76ers fans all said, well, they'll never win a championship. They just ruined their odds because DeAndre Jordan's the most unplayable backup. DeAndre Jordan even played in the playoffs. Nuggets won a championship. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't him, guys. Maybe you had the wrong center you were blaming for your folly here. And it was one of these things that was like just a great thing. Again, Philly fans would never acknowledge it. It's never this part, but not only did DeAndre Jordan come here, but loved it, like really enjoys his experience. And now he's on year 3. So Westbrook, well, I'm not going to put my money on this to happen. There's a part of the glee that Lakers fans take out of like, ha, 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 you got this, where I'm like, yeah, but if it works, I will get to bring this back up to Lakers fans and be like, you guys couldn't make it work with Westbrook, huh? That's weird. Worked for us.
Well, it's slightly different, I would say. When he's making, $3-ish million or whatever he's making compared to the $47 million that he was making when he was a Laker.
Slight difference.
I also I've one of my favorite kind of rebuttals that I've gotten consistently all summer is Nuggets fans saying like, oh, what are you talking? He's going to be great. Like he's going to come off of the bench. He doesn't need to close games. He doesn't need to do this. I'm like, if he was willing to take that role, he would still be a Clipper. He took
that role for the Clippers.
I know he did, but he also looked for an out as soon as he could find one because he didn't like playing that role for the Clippers. Like he's just like, this is what happens with all superstars. They are the last players to be aware of any kind of slippage, and he still thinks he's a superstar. And I'm curious how that's going. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Let me give you the case though for it. Okay. Here's the thing about Jokic. So he's played with, if you just look at the end of his career.
Is it real that he specifically wanted to play with Russ?
Yes. And I'll get into that in a second.
All right.
He played with James Harden in Houston. Not exactly the guy that you want to run through a wall for, or guy that's known for sacrificing and I'm no better than anyone else on this team. And I eat last. I let all of my soldiers eat first. Harden not known for that. LeBron James, as great of a leader as he is, and he is great, also not known for that. He is a guy that kind of knows he gets preferential treatment, this or that, and Anthony Davis. Then you go to Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't even tell his team when he's playing or not, and Paul George, who's the world's most sensitive superstar, and that's where he plays. And so now it takes me to Jokic, which is and then Kevin Durant, we clearly know about, also has some of these traits. Jokic is obviously different from this in a lot of meaningful ways, and every player that has come through has talked about this. And nobody of Westbrook stature has come through Denver, but JaMychal Green, Austin Rivers, Aaron Gordon, they've all talked about Jokic does everything to make sure we're comfortable. He'll shoot on the side basket if I walk into the gym after him because he's like, you take the main one. I'll just work over here on what I'm working on. He's this guy. And I just think there is a chance when you say, will Westbrook buy into that? I believe that players like Aaron Gordon have bought into that. KCP obviously naturally does this, but Michael Porter even has bought into that because Denver makes it easier than any other organization because the main guy doesn't see any role as undignified. He's like, yeah, you're coming off the bench, but you know what, man? It's the most important role we actually have on our team is this. And I think there is a world where it fits out or where it fits into that equation. And again, there's a world where it doesn't. So I don't want to make it sound like it's going to happen. But to me, it is something to watch here of it would be a great story of Westbrook, the most unmoldable player in the history of the game, actually somehow molds his game and works. It's hey, that's a great story. He found a way to adjust in the twilight of his career. And it would be even greater if it resulted in a championship.
Yeah, I don't know. It's old dogs and new tricks stuff to me.
You're not wrong.
But part of it is that if Jokic could get Russ to not take the 17-footer when there's 15 seconds left on the shot clock and you're up by 5 with like 2 minutes left.
Takes like 5 a game, I swear.
It's dude, it was maddening. Like that was the thing. Russ does a lot of stuff that frankly the Lakers still miss. Like they still miss that kind of an engine from the perimeter who can just get by people.
He's never separated the good and the bad in his game. And so you've had to take it with it. And for a large portion of his career, it was worth it. Like, okay, it's worth it. And it no longer is. And that's why he's been so tough in his last stops.
Yeah. And you know, if he is able to separate those things and eliminate some of those things, then yeah, cool. It'd be a great story. But like that's what we thought about the Clippers, and that's what we've thought about like hell, the Lakers. Like the AD and LeBron sat down with Russ and, you know, carved out roles and went over identities and all of these things. And then Russ showed up in 15 games in, was like, yeah, fuck all that. That sucked. I'm not interested.
So last thing I have on this, that is a really important piece, which is I just said that there's 3 things that make for a great basketball team. There's individual talent. Russ does bring talent. We'll see if it actually is a positive or not. But, you know, Denver, I think, is good there. I talked about intensity and just how hard you play, competitive spirit. Denver lacked this. They lacked it. And it was one of the things Bruce Brown brought. Westbrook's on the Mount Rushmore of all competitive. Like he just brings it every single night. He plays hard. And I think that will be a positive. The middle piece of that was teamwork. And Denver has had great teamwork. Like they've played as a together. This is one of their traits that makes them so great. Westbrook represents the thing that can break that. But if he doesn't, then it's a positive. So that's the big question. It's just how much does he disrupt that aspect of it? But the competitive part is huge. And the guy that I think he's going to drop most out of is Jamal Murray, who needs kind of a kick in the pants, to be honest with you. Jamal is better than what he has been in the NBA. We've seen that in big moments in playoffs, but he's not that consistently. And I honestly think the reason that Jokic went to management and said, Westbrook's my guy, we would benefit from him being here, is he knows Westbrook's real. Jokic loves guys that are real, and he knows that he brings it every night. And he knows that he's the type of guy that would look at Jamal Murray dogging it in January and said, what the hell are you doing? Disrespecting the game. Get your ass out of here. And he's one of the few guys that could actually pull that off. And if that has a positive impact on Jamal, the Nuggets are back.
Yeah, Jamal, look, he had to do cardio this year in the summer for the first time in a while. So, you know, he might be in for a pretty good season next year too. But all right, Adam, I've taken up way too much of your time. I greatly appreciate you hopping on in the middle of the summer when we would otherwise not want to talk about basketball. I think we avoided you getting canceled. I think we're good there. Yeah. Anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here? Just in general, everybody, if you guys want to be more informed on the Nuggets as the Lakers prepare for another season where the Nuggets and the Lakers rivalry, whatever it is right now, is going to take its next chapter. Check out all of this stuff at DNVR. But is there anything specific that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
100 Invisible Threads, 1-hour documentary that you'll actually really enjoy on YouTube. You can watch it for free. It's fun.
Yeah, I saw that it hit like 100,000 views the other day.
It's up to 120 something now. Like it's found an audience here at this with this Olympics, so it's pretty cool.
All right, so let's get it to 126,000 downloads.
That's all the pull you got? 5,000? Come on, dude,
man. That's as far as I can go. That's as far as I can take it. No, thank you very much, Adam. Have a great rest of your summer, and I'll talk to you probably as we get closer to the season. It's schedule day. Do you care about schedule day? I don't care about schedule day.
You don't? I mean, I'm going to pretend to care.
I mean, I really care, everybody. That is going to do it, though. Please do hit that subscribe button wherever you guys are watching. Hit it wherever it is that you get your pods, preferably on Odyssey. And until next week, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you on Monday.